Go ahead and get started here in just a bit. My name is Steve McKell, your outgoing chairman of the Libertarian Party of Florida. It is 9:30. McKell forever! Before we get started with business, I do want to invite up a guest who's going to give a little talk this morning. He's a great candidate, a great Floridian. He's done a lot throughout the state and is currently running as the presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party. I want to introduce you all to Mr. Mike Mom. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, I'm probably going to say a few things at this. Look, it's really good to be back in Florida. I think weird things have happened since I was with you all. It's actually the case that not so much has happened, but a number of things have been revealed. It turns out to be true that your government took money from you and from your neighbors and people elsewhere around the United States, pooled it up with a lot of money that other governments from around the world took, by the way, forcibly, from elsewhere, from citizens all over the world. Pooled up that money, ran it through a shell corporation not in the United States, and invested it in a laboratory in China. Dr. Fauci says those funds were not used to finance gain-of-function research. Senator Rand says otherwise, but what seems to be completely clear is that American money is used as the cause. It developed a virus not otherwise found in nature. It somehow escaped from the laboratory, and please God, let us find out someday it was by mistake. It spread around the world, killed several million people, killed a couple of million people in the United States. And I'm going to ask you to put a pin in that story. That story is the worst part about it. Turns out to be also true that your government took from you and from your neighbors around the state and elsewhere in the United States. I pulled it with money from outside the United States, money that was taken from other people forcibly by other governments, and invested without your knowledge other than the United States. And it was used for the single purpose of blowing up a pipeline at the bottom of the Baltic Sea, which you can admit is a weird story. Normally, this would have been considered, relatively recently, this would have been considered an act of war, and to make the story slightly stranger, an act of war against the people of, wait for it, Germany. Ironically, if you were to listen to what the White House says its objectives are, ironically, this will result in greater petrodollars flowing into the government of, wait for it, because this is weird, Russia. This is going to cost the people of Germany tens of billions of dollars per year in higher energy costs. It's going to obviously cost billions of dollars to repair this pipeline in the first place. All of this is a very bad thing, and we may ask you to put a pin in that story as well, because nothing that I told you about that story is the worst aspect of that story either. Turns out to be true that some young man in the last few weeks released documents that apparently he wasn't supposed to because he felt like he had no other choice but to keep secrets secret inside the United States government or prosecuted and going to jail, which is of course where he is today. If you were to listen to the CNN descriptive material that he released, I'm not asking you to watch Fox News, just listen to what the White House Oracle, CNN, says about the material that was released. The material says that your money was taken from you forcibly, mixed with money taken by other governments around the United States, your neighbors and others. And it was used to finance an operation in Ukraine, which is apparently not doing anything to advance the interests of the United States, is not even in the long run expected to help the people of Ukraine. That's a weird story. I'm going to ask you to put a pin in that as well, because nothing that I've said about that is the worst part of that story. The worst part of that story is that the people of Ukraine, the government specifically, knows about the material that was released. Does anyone in this room really think that the government of Russia didn't already know damn well what the findings were? Of course they already know this story. The reason the government didn't want this material to be released is because who did not want to have learned about it? You and me. The worst part about all of these stories These stories seem to have absolutely nothing in common. The worst part is that they have absolutely everything in common. That yours is a government that operates in the shadows. That is because it does not operate in your interest. It does not operate in the interest of you, your neighbors, other citizens around your state, elsewhere in the United States, or frankly anyone else around the world. It operates in its own interest. It operates for the sole purpose of bringing power to itself, for the aggrandizement of the politicians who run it. This is your government, and it is accelerating, leads to authoritarianism, and that's the reason why, even though I've spent the last year running around state to state talking about what a great opportunity we have in 2024, and we do, I'm getting tired of talking about it. I don't any longer want to talk about what a great opportunity we have. I want to talk about the fact that this is more than an opportunity. This is our obligation. Does anyone in this room really think that a Republican is going to stand up and say the truth about projecting military hegemony around the world? That taking money for this purpose is evil? Does anyone in this room really think that the Democrats are going to stand up for your rights, whether those are your First Amendment rights, Second Amendment rights? And to be honest, I don't think Democrats can spell the 10th Amendment. It is up to Republicans and Democrats to stand up for your constitutional rights, your God-given rights, your natural rights. It's up to us. We libertarians, we as libertarians, we are the philosophical descendants of the people that put together our Constitution and founded our country and did so for only one damn good reason: civil liberties. If we don't stand up for them, nobody else will. Before the end of this century, our government will be completely bankrupt and likely out of business if it continues on the path that it's on today. My greatest fear is not that that happens. My greatest fear is that people like us, maybe, well, your grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, that people like us will view that as not necessarily such a bad thing. So sick of our government will we be by then. And I think that's a real shame. It's up to us to run not just a national campaign with a hard edge, like I'm trying to do, but for everyone in this room to pick up a shovel in one way or another. And I don't mean a little sissy shovel. It's something big that you can wield, something that's more useful than digging our own grave. It's up to us to run for office to spread the message and to do so in a way that completely differentiates us from the other parties. This is no longer merely a playground in which we have an opportunity to play a major role in American politics. We do. But this is absolutely, from now on, our call of duty. Thank you. Thanks for listening. I understand that we have exactly time for one question. And we do have, I don't know if you all are aware of our new rule inside this party, weird questions only. And I will be the arbiter of whether that is weird enough. So you and I all know each other well enough to know that this is not a high to be clear. I don't think this will be about ending the Fed if you want my plan to do so, but that's a little beaten path. Weird questions only. And yes, you do look like just the guy that killed me.
Where is family court? And family court, removing feds from family court and getting states out of the extortion of children.
This is not as tough an issue as you might think. And I do make sure that you and I from what angle you're going after. So let me start from the top. The Fed has no place playing a role in any policy related to families all the way down. This is central to how your caucus and mine feels about decentralizing authority all the way down, right? Today we have a problem in the United States of confusing the direction in which public policy has to flow.
Public policy has to be allowed to flow from top down, from culture to law, to criminalization. The fact that Americans don't understand this is why we have so many black markets in the United States. Because we keep criminalizing things, and the culture is not ready to stop criminalizing. Or I should say, to stop performing and to start criminalizing. So, for any number of us, we need to push down the authority to, we seem to have lost in the United States the simple being able to raise our children the way we want. Not only the federal government, but the state, out of our personal ability to make rules for our school boards. And as much as I love Governor DeSantis' attitude towards certain things, I mean, look, who doesn't love a cultural issue? The truth of the matter is that where he differentiates from true libertarianism is that he is unwilling to allow locals to make decisions. Now, all the way down to the family, he has got to be the last arbiter of what is, whether that's children or other folks in the family. That is where it has to rest. One big issue is the government has a role in protecting children from what we might child abuse. This has been a long debate in American culture, acceleratingly so in the Libertarian Party. It's my view that communities, and I don't mean the federal government, I don't mean states, but communities have the right to come together and decide what they want their criminal code to be and how they want to enforce it. As everybody knows, I'm a big proponent. I spend a lot of time talking about reforming the justice system, ending the war on drugs, and changing the way we manage police. But communities do have a right to make these rules for themselves, and states to allow them to. Most communities, I believe, are uncomfortable of allowing certain. I don't want to get too detailed on this. Most communities are uncomfortable children to make certain decisions until they're 18. And I believe the communities have the right to step in and make those decisions. So outside of that, everything has to stay out of the household, has to stay out of families. Thank you.
That
All right.
was a weird question.
What's that?
A weird question.
No, it was not a sufficiently weird question. We have 8 seconds left, and it's got to be stranger. Sir.
Where's Aleppo?
Yeah. This is a very important question. Now, the reason it's so important is because Aleppo is not merely Syria. Aleppo is a misunderstood allegory, in my view. The reason that our campaign imploded 6 years ago now was not because Gary, and on some level we're all fans of Gary. It's a love-hate thing. He seems like a perfectly nice guy, and he seems like 2/3 of the libertarians. So what's there not to love? The reason Gary Johnson's campaign imploded was not because he forgot the name of the town in Syria. The reason his campaign imploded is because when he forgot the name of the town in Syria, he had not already given people enough reason to hang on to him. If you are running a campaign that says I'm fiscally conservative like Republicans and socially liberal like Democrats, you're doing approximately 3 things wrong. You're not running as a libertarian. You're not differentiating yourself from the other parties. And you're not telling people the truth. We are not fiscally conservative like Republicans because Republicans are not fiscally conservative. Socially liberal anymore either. We don't run around canceling each other because you don't think the way that I do. That's weird, actually. And it would be even weirder if I were to do it. I was raised by a Lutheran and a Calvinist. You really don't want my family to run around telling you how to live your lives. And I wish they'd lay off me, much less you, right? Contrast that with Donald Trump. the moment. And that's a weird thing to do. I recognize that. I was in the 80s in New York, so I've got a long history and being frustrated with it. He once said that he'd go out of that and shoot someone. I'm not sure he's wrong. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I hope I'm not completely alone in this assertion. That forgetting the name of a town in Syria is not bad shooting someone. But to Donald's point,
for checking
he had given them no reason why people knew why they stood with him or why they stood against him. Not so with Garrett. And that's the big allegory that we need to learn from. We need to give people a reason to hang on to us, understand where we stand. We need to lead with principle and do it in an unapologetic fashion. So that if I do something stupid, like forget the name of a town in Syria, people will say, well, every once in a while he does something stupid, but he's our guy. That's where we want to be. All right, now, thank you for that. Thank you. Are we ready to go? I think so. All right, this is actually more important than the national presidential campaign. No, I'm not going to say that. That would be funny. All right, we have Hidden Barn, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey.
Okay.
And as I understand it, I might have a little bit of description. This is a documented bottle, which is signed by the master himself as a distiller.
Right after, then if I can.
And this is important because Hidden Barn Whiskey, out of, by the way, this is a partnership between Royce Neely of Neely Family Distillery. I'm about to auction this off. In case you're wondering where this is going, you're probably wondering what's coming with this bottle and why do I need the story? I need the story because when you pay a couple of $100 bottle, you're going to want to know why, right? You're not going to just give us a couple $100 for this bottle unless you have a backstory. How did it get its name is what everyone always asks. And the name, I want to make sure I get this right, Hidden Barn, Kentucky. The rickhouses throughout Kentucky, there's a naturally occurring microflora. There's much detail that you may or may not need when you're spending $200 for whiskey. That has an appetite for the airborne alcohol products by distillation. This is very important. This microflora collects on any nearby surface, dotting it with signature black spots. During Prohibition, youngsters, ask your folks. During Prohibition, at a time when distilling was punishable by jail, the black-stained barns were a dead giveaway to anyone looking to bust off a distillery operation. So you see where this is going so far, right? During Prohibition, farmers stained all their black barns in solidarity with the distillers. That's it. Sometimes I just lather myself up in the scent of marijuana so that my buddies don't get in trouble. You get the idea. Which is a weird thing to admit to your Calvinist father and Lutheran mother. Basically, making the barns indistinguishable from any others. The sense of community is the legacy that lives on in Hidden Barn Whiskey. Now, of course, it's hidden. It's not really hidden. It's camouflaged. A brand inspired by fellowship and shared passion for keeping quality whiskey flowing. This bottle is signed by Royce Neely as well as two of the other three partners who own Hidden Barn Whiskey. And as good libertarians do from time to time, they follow for the sole purpose of having it auctioned off to someone in our audience who will then drink it at his or her leisure. You don't have to drink it today. There's not a prohibition against drinking it today. And all of the funds, am I correct on this? 100% of the funds will go to Josh's house foundation. Where is this going? To the Libertarian Party of Florida. I knew I'd eventually get it. We're opening the bidding at $50. $100. $100 is more than $50. One what? It's going so fast I can hardly keep track. Mr.
Mr. Thompson's at 150. Where are we? 175. Sir, you were about to say 200? No. We're at 175. John, you want to go? You want to go 200? We're at 175. I only have one bottle like this. You understand me? This is a unique opportunity for a unique experience. Imagine how good you're going to look in front of your libertarian friends when you pour not only an excellent bottle of whiskey, but one that has been signed. I will even forward to you a story off my cell phone. 175, do I hear 199? 199 is a lot easier to explain to your spouse. Do I hear 199? 175 is going once, 175 is going twice. Do I hear 199? This is the last bottle in this shape, signed, sold. 175. Indeed, that was the only bottle I had that was shaped like that. I'm going to read you a story. No, it's the same distillery, but it is shaped differently. It's slightly smaller. This is, tell me how much whiskey is in this bottle. Yes, it's slightly smaller. This is absolutely the last bottle of any shape that we have. Okay, this is it. I promise, this is it. This is your last opportunity. You know, you and I did plan the Christmas party so bad 2 years ago, I'd have a lot more credibility. We auctioned off something like 13 flags that were signed. Every time we said it was the last one, you're horrible. But we did raise like $500, so, you know. But this really is the last bottle, I promise. This really is the last bottle. We're going to put
this thing on? Yeah.
It's the last bottle of any shape. Wow. Last bottle of any shape. Do I hear a bidding start at $50? 50, thank you. That makes me feel better. John, thank you. To try both the bids, you gotta call it up by name now. That's harsh. Pat was laughing over here, just glad I wouldn't say John in his direction. Okay, we're at $100, which is, I think, dollar for dollar, a better deal than 175 for the bigger bottle. Do I hear 125? 125.
About this bottle, right?
Yeah.
Information.
You know what? You're absolutely right. Not only does this have the signatures, it's signed, it's dated. It says 11/23/19. It was chosen on 12/4/22. It was bottled apparently in 2018. It even has the notes in the front about the content, the ingredients that went into the distillery process. So if you were going to go into business and compete with them, you would know exactly how. All right, so we're at $100, and I don't mean any disrespect to Mr. Thompson. I just want to outbid it. Do we hear 125? We're going for 125 here. We have $100 going once, but there's plenty of time. $100 going twice. $100. John, you have a nice bottle. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next item I have is a story behind the bottle. I'm going to start this auction off at $25. Real quick before we get to our next guest speaker, John Morrissey. John, where are you back, sir? John is there in the back, and $25. John's got some tumblers that are here. John, you want to speak to you have a product anywhere? He's got some leftover tumblers that are at a discount, 20% off when they'll take it. So
we did Students of Liberty earlier this year. We overplanned with a lot of our American libertarian themes, and many of the international libertarian themes didn't get it. So we have a very good stock of cups. So we're knocking off 20%. It's actually the first time we're going to do a 20% off sale at any convention. I got to do it for my home state. So as we travel around the country and so forth. So it's a pretty good deal. And we produce these in our house. So this is going to save room in my guest room, my dining room, and my living room. So our loss is your gain, but we're taking 20% off, and that's just on the tumblers. The doggy shirts are the normal price, and those water pipes are the normal price. So please get yourself one today, and thank you for having us again this year.
Thank you. Ready to auction off that bus? All right, so we got more item for you guys. This is this is something really special. This is actually one of a kind. And I'm going to introduce Trace up to the stage to help us introduce this next item. It's a pretty cool piece. We actually have a bust of Ludwig von Mises, and we're going to go ahead and get that home for you guys before we start today. So Tracy, come up on the stage, sir.
All right, how's everybody doing this morning? Good. Now we have this beautiful bust of Ludwig von Mises himself, the very foundational name of the Mises Institute. The Mises Institute, oh man, what it means to me is that, of course, the libertarians who started back in 1971 were saying this crazy, irrational thing that people didn't want to listen to, and we were just crazy guys with the tinfoil hats on. And that were innovated years and years later. But what the Mises Institute has done for us is to better articulate our beliefs and the way we can compare praxeology in comparison to communism, in comparison to socialism. Now we can completely deconstruct what these terms meant, so we can go out to the world and make practical philosophy into our beliefs and ideals, and then we can make it valid in the real world and applicable today. So, and it changed my life, I'm sure it changed everybody else's life here. So this is printed by Adrian Peterson, and it started at base $100. Do we have 125? 125 for the gentleman in the back. Awesome. Do we have 175? 175 going once. What about your man with the camera? 175? Stop filming me. Okay. I'm just kidding. Go ahead. Do what you got to do. And what about this gentleman right here? 175? 175? 175? 175. Awesome. How did I know? Let's pick the right one. That's all it is. All right. Awesome. Anybody else want to go a little bit ahead? Or 175? Let's say 200. 200. You can put it right there in your living room, in your home. It's a good conversation piece about what you believe and what you know to be the objective reality. Do we have 200 for the objective reality? What about, let's see. Mr. Sokol, what about yourself? We got 200? No? Okay, all right. 200? All right. 200 going once, 200 going twice. Let's say 180. 180? How's that sound? A little more reasonable? No, say, 190. I'll say 195. 195? 195. What about the dollar in the back? No, all righty. Okay. 175 going once. 175 going twice. Sold to the gentleman right here. Thank you so much. That's my first auction. How did that go? I might go into this a little bit more.
Give it up for Tracy and Mr. All right. Next item of business is convention credentials report. Mr. Allen.
Right now.
We have 81 delegates signed in this morning. So it was yesterday.
It's going to be a 40 people for forum. Is that correct? 41. 41. All right. Since the room is kind of thin, okay, the room is kind of thinning out. I would like all delegates just to stand, please, so I can do a quick form count. Make sure we have a quorum so we don't business today.
I got you.
Eric, here you go. Yes. 14, 15, 16, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we're good. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Cool. All right, guys. Next up is going to be our committee reports. So I'm going to call upon each of the committee chairs that served validly this past term to give a quick 5-minute update on their committees and anything they want to talk about in regards to what happened this year, how do they feel things went, what do we do well, can we do better, just a simple shout out for your committees and well wishes moving forward. So the first person I'm going to call up, you can stand up to the microphone if you're a committee chair. I'm going to ask Philly Support Committee to receive a quick 5-minute release.
This year we had some affiliates that were affiliated before, but we had people moving, shifting, and a number of people that re-affiliated. We had people here from Arkansas and Hillsborough County right now. We have a lot of transplants coming over here, taking over the Tampa area. They are well represented by Home C this weekend. We also have Clay County in the process of re-affiliating as well. But we are also only as strong as our weakest link. So, everybody, I encourage you to at least reach out to affiliate support if there's something that you do, as far as like whether it's designing things or if you're a good steam maker or you like to do talks on certain things, because the more that we have other people getting involved with smaller affiliates or affiliates that are inactive, the more that we can actually do to expand and grow and to better. So I'm here to market affiliate support and ask for your support and support you. Yeah. But other than that, we had a pretty good year. So thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Ms. Baxter. Thank you, Affiliate Support Committee. Next up is Audit Committee. I know Ms. Gilmore couldn't make it today. Is there anyone from Audit who would like to represent their committee? Mr. Thompson?
We have nothing to report.
Thank you, sir. No news is good news. Next up is Candidates Committee. Is Mr. Rooston House? Is any member of the Support Committee in the house? Woo! Next up is Communications Committee, Mr. Johnson.
So as most of you know, I took over the committee midway through the term and made some pretty drastic changes. We have managed to verify our Facebook account and have run ads, I think very successfully to get people here to convention. We have started work on an IT policy manual so that in the future, redundancies and passwords and things of that nature are taken care of, so the transition from chair to chair is a much smoother process, and it can happen literally at convention when the changeover happens. We're also working on a marketing plan so that we can build out a schedule and not be surprised as to when something is going to drop, whether it's an email or social media. So other than that, really, if you're in the communications anything and would like to volunteer, we can totally use the manpower on the committee. Thank you.
And I will say, Mr. Johnson's work in communications is both impressive and frightening. The level of detail to actually track and deliver advertising to somebody is very, very interesting. All right, next up is Convention Committee, Mr. Fleming. Come on down, sir.
You're the best.
I had a very brief 20-minute diatribe that I'd like to go over. First of all, I want to say thank you to the convention committee. A really good team. We worked really hard this year. Not everything went perfect, unfortunately, but we did our best, and I want to thank Matt in particular because within communications, it really helped out. Also with EPC. You know, we got Basecamp going. I know a lot of people aren't going to it yet, but that is very important for us for keeping information, not only for us, but for communications and any other committee, to hold that information and be able to pass it on so it's easier handoff for next year. I know passwords are a bit of a pain in the ass sometimes, but yeah, there's a lot of work done by the CC and by communications. Also, I'd like to thank Mitch also for fundraising. Did a fantastic job. I also like to, if everybody could give Huey, our hot baby guy, a hand.
Yeah!
And of course, Mark Beloff, who, you know, he does set a fraction of the cost, really helps us out and made it a fucking awesome setup, I'll be honest with you. I'd like to also give a hand to, I know they're not in here, but our servers for the last couple of days, they were pretty spot on. Maybe next year we'll have 3 instead of 2, but they did a very good job. That venue was kick-ass in my opinion. I'd also like to thank Christina Baxter in particular. I don't know if she's still in here. We're doing the family stuff. She worked really hard putting all that stuff together. Hopefully next year we'll have a couple more families. We are already setting up for next year. We have a couple. We're looking at this venue again and in Jacksonville. So the next committee is already on the roll. They're already making progress towards that. We'll have a more detailed report probably in the next couple of weeks as far as funds and how much we either made or broke even or hoping for both. So, and then I'd also like to just thank everybody that's in the room. You know, you guys are a kick-ass professional group, and that really means a lot to me and this hotel. So thank you.
We love you!
Do it next year.
Next up is Fundraising Committee, Mr. Reachad. Where'd you go, sir? Good.
Hello, everyone. So for fundraising, it has been a bumpy year, but we've managed to sail and make it through. LPF merch has been really good. We've been getting good, pretty decent sales there. It's kind of gotten a little bit less since the holidays, but that generally happens across the board. And they work in that sort of field before. And I'm looking forward to passing off everything that we've done to whoever ends up running fundraising next. I'm also glad that we're able to get everything all set up for this convention as far as auction off some of these different items, what it costs for the various bottles of liquors that were donated to the top line fundraising. So anyone who has donated anything or come to help out, I sincerely thank you from the bottom of my heart. Stephen, Hector, wherever he is, just thank you so much, guys.
All right, and last but not least is membership committee, Mr. Mijas.
You're right. You're right. Over there, Eric.
All right, you sure you want to hold that? So we have to work with phone, text, email, campaign to unaffiliated companies to find two things: enough registered libertarian voters to form a group to start an affiliate and new LPF members. Our current campaign in Sarasota County was so far 20 have indicated an interest in Zoom meeting to form an affiliate group, and 4 have joined the LPF. In Hillsborough County, 29 of those called who indicated an interest to meet resulted in 7 showing up at the first meeting, which are the number I am targeting for Sarasota. David Mustard was the leader in Hillsborough, and Edie Velasquez originally also was present at the meeting. Previous to Hillsborough, we held Christy Luzano to form an affiliation group in Pasco County. After the first meeting of the affiliation group, the regional representative and the chair of the affiliate committee take over completely the rest of the affiliation process. Now, these campaigns have brought a total of 20 new LPF members. And now I am trying to obtain 2 new members to the committee to train in conducting these campaigns to help accelerate the formation of new affiliates and have more LPF members.
Yes, sir.
A big shout out and thank you again to all the committee chairs and committee members. I mentioned it before and I'll say it again, the committees are the engine that drives the party. Without them, we'd be lost. So thank you again, guys. Appreciate it. All right, next up is the platform report. We have none, but since I'm on the platform, I'm going to say something else. We are going to convention season, or excuse me, the national convention 2024. If you're a Libertarian Party of Florida member and you're not what's called the bylaw sustaining member of the Libertarian National Committee, head over to lp.org. It's $25 to be a BSM member. That's really important now because the more people we get to sign up as bylaw sustaining members, the more delegate slots, the more voting power Florida has. So the more people we send from Florida to DC to vote next year's convention. So if you haven't done already, it's $25. Head over to lp.org, become a member. It helps us with all the things we need to do at national to keep the LP going, and it helps out our state. So just a reminder there. All right, next up is new business, 4 motions to the Constitution. So we're going to head over our packets to the 4 motions section. Okay. We're just going to go in order as they are on the packet. The first motion is motion to remove unilateral power of standing committee chair nominations from the LPF chair and give the entire executive committee the ability to add candidates. Mover is Patrick Leisner. Is there a second? Second. Second. Mr. Leisner, would like to speak to your motion?
I don't know where he is.
Would anyone like to speak for the motion?
He's great.
While he's graduate, I guess I'll speak to the motion a little bit. So basically the idea is right now, according to our bylaw, it's bylaw, right? According to our bylaw, it says that the nominations for committee chairs come from basically the chair. And the chair can basically put somebody up, and then everybody votes yes or no. The idea behind the motion is to open up that process to the entire executive committee, where anyone can make a nomination or put somebody up for a committee chair position, and then the EC votes as they normally would. It would just be maybe against multiple people. The idea there is that you can get more people, you can get more input, more perspective, and then hopefully, if there are multiple candidates for a particular position, then you can have that person volunteer to be a member, even if they don't win. So it's a way to recruit people for it, it opens up the process to more people, it's a way to decentralize power, which I know about, so there we go. That's the idea behind it.
All right, floor is now open for discussion. Is there anyone who would like to
Show
speak
this,
on this motion?
Mr. Chair, Josh
Mr. Lyon, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, sir. As the incoming chair, I have no strong opinion one way or the other on this. I just think that there may be some unintended consequences, but those are something that, through good communication and, management of the EC, we can mitigate completely. So once again, I have no strong opinion either way. I don't think this is going to help or hurt anything. If this is what the delegates want, is to give the EC more power to have that ability to nominate committee chairs, I don't particularly have a problem one way or the other with it. Therefore, after this, I'm going to be recusing myself from this further discussion.
Thank you, sir. All right, is there any further discussion on this motion?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Perez, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think as libertarians, we all recognize that competition is a good thing. We all recognize that the market will provide the best solution. And I think opening it up to other members of the EC is absolutely a good thing. And, no harm's going to come of it. At the end of the day, people are going to make their arguments. And I think people are going to prove themselves if they can't perform what they want.
Mr. Perez. All right, if there's no further discussion, we'll go ahead and move on to the vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, motion passes. Next item is motion to add an article of secession to the LPF Constitution. Movers Josh Lanka. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Leisner. All right, the motion reads, I move to amend the LPF Constitution to include an article for police secession, Article X. If you go through here, you can see the exact language. Mr. Locke, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This was originally created out of basically the downstream blowback of LP Virginia and what they did a couple months back. Speaking with the Rules Committee chair at the time, when it happened, we had realized that we don't actually have a formalized process in place one way or the other, which should open that up to what could be sometimes considered loose interpretation of the governing docs, which could become problematic later. Now, I've generated a lot of feedback on this motion from the membership since I did release it out 30 days outside of convention meetings, a constitutional amendment. Unfortunately, any amendment I would make at this point would be out of order due to the newness requirements here. So I would actually consider, in the interest of time, I don't know if this is important, Mr. Chair, but I would actually move to commit this to rules. But then decide if this is worth the time of the delegates and bring it back in 24, as I don't see this to be a pertinent issue that really requires a necessitated need to get this done now.
That would be in order, so is that motion?
Yes, sir, it is in order. I would like to move to commit to rules.
Second.
All right, second.
By a bunch of us.
Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, vote. All in favor of committing this item to rules, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Next up is motion to amend Article 9, endorsement of candidates, Section 1. The mover is Hector Roos on behalf of the Candidates Committee. Because it's on behalf of submitted by committee, does not require a second. And the motion reads, I move to amend the following section under LPF Constitution as follows. Strike language, Article 9, endorsement of candidates, Section 1 of the LPF Constitution. Section 1, candidates shall be eligible for endorsement as official LPF candidates if they are members of the LPF. Strike, have registered as LPF candidates with the Florida Division of Elections, and include and meet all requirements of the office to which they seek. Is there a second? No, it doesn't require a second, excuse me. Is there any discussion on this item? Mr. Locke, are you recognized?
Thank you, sir. I'll try and speak on behalf of Mr. Bruce here since he's not available. I believe the only thing that we're really doing here is just strengthening the words have registered as LPF candidates before the divisional elections. If they didn't register as LPF candidates before the divisional elections, they wouldn't meet all the requirements of office to which they seek elections. So we can go down, so we always deal with redundant. Once again, I am not Mr. I don't know if I'm delivering this message well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Locke. Mr. Field, recognized, sir.
I believe I can also speak to the intent of the motion. The issue I believe Mr. Bruce intended to address here is registered as LPF candidates before the division elections has two potentially unintended consequences. The first, registered as LPF candidates, would exclude all nonpartisan candidates. The second would be registered before the division elections. Before the division elections is only the qualifying office for state and federal campaigns. Local campaigns, the qualifying office is their county supervisor elections or their city clerk, and so this would also exclude endorsements on local candidates. I will note that for local candidates in affiliated counties, the affiliated autonomy clause would require an approval of the county affiliate first, but no such restriction would exist in unaffiliated counties. So I believe Mr. Bruce's intention was to remove these requirements which he believed, and I can't speak to the prior rules committee's intentions on this, unintentionally excluded both nonpartisan and local candidates from endorsement by the LPF. I will note that this is more likely to be immediately relevant in 2024 than in 2023. And as the incoming rules chair, it is my intent to consider Article 9 more broadly, not just this particular problem. So if the delegation wished to address such rules, it's something we would definitely consider anyways. However, I will not personally make that motion.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Locke, I recognize.
If I may, since Mr. Peel won't make the motion, I would like to move the commitment to the rules.
Second.
All right, any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor of moving this item to rules, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Who seconded the motion?
Several seconds.
Mr. Cordes.
Technically, Mr. Conley was first, but.
Next up. Next up is motion titled Clarifying Active Membership. Mover is Tim Crosby. Is there a second? Second, Mr. Higgins. Mr. Crosby, would like to speak to your motion.
Yeah, so I'm not going to read it because there's a lot of changes to it, but basically what this would do is make it a requirement to re-sign the NEP or re-sign up as a member of the LPF once a year. So I know that's going to be an extra burden to put on everybody, but the intention behind this is for those of you who have access to CBCRM, you'll note that we have over 3,000 members in the Libertarian Party of Florida, according to that data. I'm not saying that we should get rid of that data, that's good data, but we don't have accurate information as to how many truly active members there are. Clearly, there's not 3,000 people in this room. And when you're working from the state level and you're trying to decide where we're going to put events, where we're going to spend our money, what were some of those decisions that we're trying to make, well, when new activists come in and they say, hey, I'm in this county, I'm trying to find some active members, who can I talk to? We might give them a list of 200 people that haven't been active in the party for a long time. And so it's just a way to try to get better data. I'm not saying that we should delete data, and actually this process, it is going to put an extra burden on Ed or whoever our next secretary is, because we'll have to re-credential those people. But I think the value is there to have the more accurate data. So definitely consider the effect that it's going to have on some other people, but I think the end result will be better for the party overall.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone who would like to speak on?
Greg's going to answer.
What would happen if we forgot?
Mr. Field.
Is there opposition to this motion? This motion would effectively strip member rights
I don't know.
from every member of the party who does not sign a renewal each year. This is a massive inconvenience solely for the convenience of the executive committee. It adds a substantial burden to the secretary and to the membership committee, particularly at a time where our membership tracking tools are already not ideal. I believe that 95% of the intent of this motion could be achieved as tracking who is donated, who is visited the website, who opens their emails. As Chairman kind of referenced, there's a rather frightening amount of information being collected in an automated way. Furthermore, there's nothing preventing the membership committee from sending out a voluntary email just asking our members, hey, do you still want to be included on things? And use that as a data tracking mechanism. Now, I do agree with Mr. Crosby that tracking which of our members are active members is a good thing and useful. That part we are agreeing on. I just vehemently disagree with stripping members of their rights over not re-signing that pledge each year, particularly since we have enough difficulty getting people to sign it in the first place. I encourage the delegation to vote this down.
Thank you, Mr. Field. Mr. Minos?
He just took the words right out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Mr. Pratt?
I won't waste a lot of time with any more back and forth. I just want to put it out there that that's something we need to take care of.
All right, is there any further discussion on this item? Mr. Wozniak?
To be clear, the NAP is a pledge for like, ever, not for a year, right?
As currently written, yes.
Can we mention it?
Sure.
I need to refresh every year.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
Yay.
The ayes have it, motion fails. Next up is deleting the director at large. Movers Tim Crosby.
Oh,
Is there a second?
here we go.
Second. Mr. Crosby, recognized. Was Lisa. Mr. Crosby.
Okay, all right, cool. So I'm just going to read the rationale here. Directors at large have no defined duties outside of being fiduciaries of the party, which is a responsibility that's shared by all other members of the executive committee. And B, that other motions put forward that we saw the other day have sought to reduce the bloated size of our executive committee, which is a sentiment that I happen to agree with. I believe if we were to do that, the best place to start would be in those areas that seem to have the least measure of impact on the party's overall effectiveness and would place the least amount of burden on other goals that remain. So that's basically the argument. Something up with that. So I'll leave it there.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Here we go.
Mr. Kettering, recognized.
Yes, I'd like to speak in opposition to the motion on several counts. The first being that directors are part of the corporate charter, which is a process that will cost us some money. The second being that our directors at large have traditionally been more senior members of the party who are holders of institutional knowledge. They warn us when we're about to fall into traps. They have been consistently members of the audit committee, making sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And finally, they're also a balance for the distribution of the population in Florida. That is, by having at-large members, you don't favor underpopulated areas in your representation on the EC. They act as a balance. Thank you.
I'm also going to speak in opposition, probably more from a practical standpoint, which is, I think the spirit of the motion is that we have regional representatives, but I think it actually disempowers strong regions in a lot of ways, because you're limiting a strong region, which may have many people who have a lot to offer the executive committee, to only one person that can serve that capacity. The at-large representative allows for more than that to happen. And we see that at a national level, and we see that at a state level. And I think we ought to empower people who have a lot to give to the state of Florida to be able to do that. And they have at-large positions which aren't held to a geographical location is a good thing for the body. So I'm going to say in opposition to it and respect the spirit of the motion, but I say in opposition. Thank you.
Mr. Goodwin. Also rise in opposition to this motion. I 100% agree with what Mr. Cabaret and Mr. Cordova already stated, and I will restate it. As someone previously served as a director at large, I have found that it is a very useful position for me, since it gives me the flexibility to represent all of the libertarians as best needed by the party. The directors at large, traditionally, I can speak to everything, every single one. Identify lead special projects to fill gaps that the rest of the executive committee didn't plan for, or that we don't have committees tackling. One of my particular special projects as a director at large was Operation New Affiliate Shepherd. You may recognize it now that it's more qualified for the affiliate support committee. I believe the directors bring substantial value to the party, and as someone who does live in a very populated region, I also appreciate the point Mr. Cordova made that our regions are not balanced for population, and having directors at large ensures that qualified people in very populated areas are still not seen in DC. I very much recommend voting for this motion.
Mr.
I'm going to speak in support of this motion. There's a couple of points I'd like to cover. The idea of population representation to me is a bit of a step in the face of people who decide to live in places that are less populated and have dense urban areas control what goes on in their neck of the woods. And that kind of throws me off a little bit. I do like the idea of having a less populated area, having just as much representation as Miami. Because just because Miami has more people than I have in Fort Lucie or something like that in Tallahassee, doesn't mean they have the right to tell them what to do in their neighborhood. Okay, so I understand we have representation from regions to help balance that out. Ideally, if the Dow was to stay, I would think that the region reps should have to vote for who the Dow should be, rather than the body at large. Kind of the way Senate was intended to be before the 17th Amendment. So that it isn't a direct popularity contest. Derived, like having population centers dictate what's going to happen in densely populated areas. So if we do keep it, I encourage everybody to have change their to think about changing when you vote for it now. But in this instance, I strongly support it.
Mr. Rooster, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in opposition to the proposed amendment. I think, as I said yesterday, the at-large system works in recruiting people who actually have experience and are going to invest 2 years of their time. This is structurally different than regional reps. I also believe that the representation issue that was brought up recently regarding lower populated areas is grossly exaggerated. By virtue of that, there are people here from counties that are a lot less populated in numbers that exceed areas that are much more populated here. So it really is, at the end of the day, this has always been the party of the people who show up. And by virtue of people who show up here, this is actually, thank you.
All right, is there any further on this motion? Mr. Chair? Mr. Brooks, right now.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I don't have super strong feelings when I was leaning more in favor of the motion. For the simple fact, I was leaning more in favor of the motion for the simple fact that, that was kind of just an open, create your own adventure type of position. Something I would like to see the CC do, since, reading the room, it does seem like this is not going to pass. And there have been some strong arguments for and some strong arguments against as well. But something I would like to see this next CC do is define the role for each one of the DELs. Now 1 does this, now 2 does this, now 3 does the other thing. It's some gaps, but it's nicer to give somebody actual direction.
Thank you, Mr. President. All right. Is there any other discussion on this item? Just so everybody's aware that what this item would do is reduce the size of the executive committee from 21 to 18 and eliminate the DL positions. Now move on to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Yay. The ayes have it. Motion fails. Of the standing floor motions is reducing the regional representative responsibilities. Mr. Crosby. Is there a second?
I lost two.
Well, is there a second for this motion? Second? And what's your name, sir? Hello.
Sorry, I lost two. This one's a lot less controversial, so no worries. So this one is basically saying that it's not it's not putting the burden of affiliating new counties on the region reps. That is something that I help do because the region rep is typically elected locally. So I think that's beneficial. But what I'm aiming to do here is to put that responsibility more on the executive committee where we can have more direct influence on that process and make sure that it actually happens. Sometimes we have region reps that are elected just because people like them, and a lot of times I've seen it in my own region where people don't necessarily want to do the job, but no one else is willing to do it. So a lot of times we don't get new counties affiliated. And so this change wouldn't restrict region reps from being able to help do that. It just kind of places the emphasis that this is the responsibility of the executive committee, the affiliate support committee, the membership committee, and those things. And I think it's proven that those are the areas where a lot of this gets done. So that's it. That seems it.
I rise in slight opposition to this motion. I actually agree with Mr. Crosby's intent on this. I think that my only concern with this motion is that it does not give this duty to anyone else specifically. And if something is no one's duty, no one's going to do it. If it's as if assigning these duties as directors and boards or to the affiliate support committee, I would probably be speaking in favor of it. However, I don't believe that would be within the scope of minutes. So I would like for the rules committee to take a crack at this and kind of come up with something that's workable. So I guess this time I know which is
Second.
Motion and a second to approve this item's rules. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, moving on to a vote. All in favor of approving this item's rules, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Motion passes. And that does it for our floor motions, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, shit.
I'm not going to fight with people. I know they were going to fail. I just wanted to put them out there.
But now rule doesn't say
Mr. Locke, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe we're on just a point of information. We are on item number 34 at this point remaining on business, correct, Mr. Chair?
That is correct, Mr.
All right, thank you, sir. I do believe that the Rules Committee passed a rule during our bylaws for the election of the deputy secretary. I don't believe that happened yesterday, Mr. Chair, given an oversight. So at this time, I'm moving to suspend the rules so that we consider nominations and elections for a deputy secretary at this time, sir.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Without a second.
I want to be effective.
Any objections to the rules to that purpose? Hearing no objection. Is there any discussion on the motion to open up nominations for deputy secretary?
Looks like we're good.
Any objection? All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on. The floor is now open for nominations.
Sorry, who?
Laurel Waiter.
Oh, wow.
What's the last name?
Waiter, WHH.
Something like that.
This is live.
Yes. For all intents and purposes, it's Bob.
We didn't name the government to change the name like some of you guys did.
Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Nominations are now closed. We'll move on to, would you like to give a speech? No, okay, that's fine. Do accept your nomination. All right, nominations accepted. We'll go ahead and move on to a vote. All, how do you pronounce this? Don't butcher it like I'm sure Josh's last name. Okay, this is all in favor. All in favor of electing Mrs. Blanco as deputy treasurer, or secretary, excuse me, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Congratulations. All right, guys, next up on the agenda is request volunteers for committees. So if you're interested in serving as a volunteer in one of our great committees, guys, there are some QR codes on your tables as well as up here. And I believe that Johnson's going to speak.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Johnson would like to speak. I did send Mr. Johnson a link last night to the Google form that had been sent out to all the delegates' emails. So if you do check your inbox at the email you registered the convention at, you should have the link in there. For those of you who are a little bit more technologically advanced, we do have a QR code up here. You're more than welcome to come up real quick. That takes you to that same Google form that the link in your inbox does. If you don't get the Google or you don't get the link today, and you don't decide you want to scan the QR code in about a day or two, Monday or Tuesday, we're going to send this link out to the general membership wide at large throughout the state here. So you guys are going to have multiple opportunities. We're going to be reaching out. Please, be many committees. Once again, they do not sunset anymore, but these committees still need help. They still need volunteers. They still need people who have knowledge, resources, and material to get things done. Thank you.
All right, guys, that's it. We're on item number 36, final announcements. Does everyone like to be recognized for final announcements?
YouTube.
Just this is the other. A PS to what I said yesterday about the Richard and light bulb parties is what I did is I went to FEE and I ordered, it was 25 copies of my pencil, and then you get a discount. And so I suggest you guys all do that, and then contact me to get the check sheet for iPencil. It's to me, after doing the basic checklist, it's the next best thing we have to do to start to understand free market economics.
Mr. Chair, if I be recognized.
Mr. Block.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to address the LPF delegation for a minute. So we have a little bit of a program here going on with the fundraiser committee called the 125 Club. This is something that we started back in 2021, successful in generating revenue for the party for us here. But unfortunately, variables and circumstances, we have not met our 100 goal yet, gentlemen here. So today, as the new incoming chair, we can help further this program along. So, it is the, Mr. Higgins, if you could seal the doors for us.
Seal the doors!
We're not entertaining the motion to adjourn until we have 5 new 125 members. I'm not asking for 100, I'm not asking for 50, just 5, it's 10%. It also shows that I have public school math, that is not 10%. That's 5%. That doesn't matter. I just need 5. Can I get 5 new sign-ups for the 125 club here? Come on, I get you that.
Most of us spend more than that on alcohol every month. Come on.
$25 a month. We got Mr. Tracy there. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. 125 member. Look, can we get one more? We got 4 left out here. I got a
bunch of kids, guys, who get this really cool pin. It says 125. I got one myself. It's big, it's loud, it's bright. It's an anarchist colors, guys. You can tell you're an anarchist. There you go. Come on. For $25, guys, you get this really great pin. $25 a month. I got 3 more notes over there.
Yeah.
All right. That leads me down to YouTube. 125 club members. Come on, Shannon. I see you over there, Sharon. Come on. You got it. Come on, Sharon. You got this. Come on. I'm playing Sharon. Sharon. Give it back, Sharon. What?
Oh.
You came, right? You joined the retirement party. You didn't eventually came to the peer pressure. Eric, come on. You're Eric.
That's true, she did.
No? Oh, Jackie. All right. One more, guys. Uno. I've gotten rid of 4 of these 5 kids. This was quick, way quick. I expected. Come on. There's got to be one. Both of the Cordovas, Mr. Robinson, Jackie, thank you guys again. Appreciate it.
There you go.
We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, guys. Fundraising share, wherever you are out there, can you hear me? Let's finish it. Let's finish it.
Concluding remarks, recommendation, Mr. Yes. I want to address the membership and say, serving you all during this term. I want to thank those who voted for me. I want to thank those who voted against also, those who voted for no. And I wanted to give a special shout out to Mr. Eric Parker and Mr. Solo.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Solo, Mr. Eric Parker, thank you.
Eric left already, but.
Thank you two guys specifically, because last year when I read for the treasurer, they decided after I gave my speech, they said, why the hell should I vote for you? And they gave me a chance, and I told them about my experience as a sales manager, and how I can track my numbers and all that stuff. Long story short, I sold them on it. And I want to challenge everybody here that when new people are coming in and they're running for these people come down to the state every day. Before COVID, it was at 1,500 new residents per day. I don't know who the residents are now. Have a conversation with these people. Ask why they deserve support. And they can tell you on it, absolutely. Let's get some people involved. Let's stop the petty gatekeeping over that person thinks slightly different than me, or looks slightly different than me, or has a slightly different accent or attitude. Let's work together, guys. That's my challenge for everybody in this membership and everybody who's going through this upcoming year. Thank you.
Guys, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for the last 4 years. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve you as chair of the Libertarian Party. It has honestly been one of my life's greatest achievements. I'm very proud to do. And the only thing I ask of you today is use the energy, the camaraderie, the fellowship that we had here this weekend. Push it forward through the year. Do something good for liberty. Because we're all united under the idea of putting liberty over everything. And each and every one for inspiring me, inspiring others, and passing towards shares of the generation. So, thank you all. The last thing I want to do as chairman, as the party chairman of the Libertarian Party of Florida, I do pass my gavel as chairman of the Libertarian Party of Florida. The only thing he gets, ladies and gentlemen, he also gets the schizo mail with no return address. And a bottle of Cracker Barrel 100% pure natural syrup.
This is for the real candidates. This is going down. This must be the inauguration on the man.
So he is fully prepared to take on this role, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm those well successful. Proud of John, proud of the name I have. Full faith in what we're able to do, and I've seen firsthand working with these guys over the last 2 years. They have what it takes to get the party that makes love. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very proud of Josh. Anything you want to stop on?
Yes, sir. You don't have to emergency LC meeting. You gotta go.
So I gotta run, Josh. You have the party for the next 2 years. And,
So this is mine. We can motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded by Mr. Perez. Is there any objection to adjournment?
On behalf of Mr. Reader, who is not here due to health concerns, however, he's watching live, I object.
Your objection is continued. Mr. Johnson, thank you. And thank you again to Marcus and everybody at home as watching. I appreciate you guys for not being here today, joining us virtually through miracles of online technology. But with that being said, hearing no objection, I call the 2023 annual business meeting.